If you've ever looked at someone who's worked 12, 14 hours a day and thought, how on earth do they do that? Then this video is the real answer. And no, it's not discipline. It's replacing every bad habit you have with one good one, which is work. Not forcing yourself, not motivating yourself, literally redirecting everything addictive that is impulsive into output. And people are going to think you're insane when you start doing this, right? You're going to lose friends. You're going to have your social circles shrink to the size of an egg, almost nothing. Your identity will change so fast that people don't recognize you anymore. And honestly, that's kind of the point, okay? Because here's the truth that nobody tells you. You don't beat addiction by getting rid of addiction. You replace it by replacing the target. So if you vape, if you drink, if you binge, if you doom scroll, if you snack to numb stress, all of that is dopamine. All of that is energy. And energy doesn't disappear. It transfers, right? So I didn't become obsessed with work because I'm some super disciplined guy. In fact, I wasn't, right? I became obsessed because I redirected every destructive habit into something I actually wanted long term. And if you're watching this with ADHD or autism or a combination of both, good, because you're actually built for this shit. Our brains already crave stimulation, novelty, hyperfocus, and a lot of dopamine. The problem is you have been giving it the wrong inputs. And once you learn how to redirect that drive, that impulsivity, that need for stimulation, you become unstoppable. Sorry for hitting my mic, but you literally can't stop working. Not because you're forcing it, but because it rewards the most rewarding part of your day. That becomes like what you're addicted to. So I'm going to show you exactly how I replaced every bad habit that I had with one obsession and why people around you are going to think you're losing your mind when you start doing this thing. So let's get into it. So really quickly, before I show you how to replace the bad habits with your work, you need to understand why this works and why it works better than discipline. Because most people think high performers are just built different, right? They think that some people are just born disciplined. They're born focused. They're born to be productive. That is complete bullshit, all right? High performers are just better at redirecting their addictions. Every addiction that you have, vaping, scrolling, porn, junk food, gambling, shopping, emotional eating, whatever your thing is, they are all doing the same thing. They are giving your brain really fast, predictable dopamine. Okay. And so here's the key, that dopamine doesn't just magically disappear when you try to quit whatever it is. It doesn't turn into magic discipline or self control. You're not David Goggins. Okay. It's just going to sit there. And unless you find something to redirect it, it will find something else to latch onto. Right. So you can't remove addiction. Your brain doesn't work like that. When you rip out that one source of dopamine, that the energy, that fuel, it needs to go somewhere else. And that's why people who quit vaping, they start snacking, right? People who quit drinking start scrolling. People who quit junk food start getting numbed with Netflix. The target behavior doesn't the target changes, the behavior doesn't. So the trick isn't let me stop doing bad things. The trick is let me funnel this urge into something useful. And that's how addictions actually form. Not from just crazy amount of discipline, but from energy redirection. Now, the moment you start doing this, your life is going to change so fast. When you take the urge to snack, to vape, to scroll, or to do anything destructive, and you channel it into work instead, you're going to rewire your reward system. So, of course, at first, it's going to feel weird. You're going to resist it a bit. Your brain will scream for the old fix, right? But the insane part is your brain, your body, human evolution, it adapts fast, right? Your brain eventually learns when I feel stressed, work. When I want dopamine, work. When I want comfort, work. When I want to escape, work. Now, you could also incorporate some workouts too. And I know this sounds a bit dark, but it's the truth behind every extremely successful person that you know. And they don't escape work. They escape into work. I look forward to it. All right. Now, people are going to think you're crazy because they can't do this. All right. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Right. When you start redirecting your impulses into work, people around you will think that you're losing it. Fuck, man. The moment you start doing this, your life is going to change dramatically. People are going to think you're crazy. Okay. And it's because they can't do this. It's against the norms. Like, this is ultimately where things get uncomfortable. When you start redirecting your impulses into work, people around you will think that you're losing your freaking mind. Your old friends won't get it. Pretty much most of them won't get it unless they're an entrepreneur. Your family are going to make comments about you or behind your back. People who used to relate to you will say you're obsessed, unhealthy, too intense, or a workaholic. Right. And what this really means is I wish I had the ability to focus like that. I wish I had something I cared about that much. I wish I had direction for my life and for my addictive tendencies, but they don't. So your growth threatens them. You're not crazy. You're just no longer compatible with the people who aren't growing. And if you're like me and you're watching this with ADHD or ADHD, this method isn't just relevant. It's your cheat code People with ADHD aren't lazy. They're miswired for traditional discipline. They don't thrive off of consistency. They thrive off of novelty, intensity, and fixation. And when you have an ADHD brain with the right target, something rewarding, stimulating, challenging, progress-based, it becomes obsessed so much healthier and faster than a neurotypical brain ever could. Because that constant search for discipline and dopamine, once you redirect it into work, you unlock something that most people don't understand, which is hyperfocus and flow and identity merging with the output. And this is why when you get into work addiction, it sticks deeper because you're not fighting the wiring, you're harnessing it. So when people assume successful people are disciplined, it's kind of a lie. What there actually are is just they're not fully addicted to progress. They're not addicted to substances. They're not addicted to distractions. They're addicted to output. And that's what we're going to build now. And I'm going to give you the 8-step formula. Okay, so now that you get why this works, let me show you exactly how to do it step by step without burning out, melting down, or losing your sanity in the process, because replacing bad habits with work isn't as simple as just do more. It requires structure, timing, and full identity shift. So let's get into how you can actually do this. Okay, so here's how to start doing this, to actually do it without burning out, melting down, or turning into a productive zombie. This is the exact protocol that I use. Okay, and it's not cute, it's not aesthetic, but it works brutally, really well. So the first thing you want to do is identify your impulse moment. So every addiction has a trigger, not the behavior, the moment before the behavior. So for example, the pausing before you vape. Okay, the boredom before you scroll on Instagram or TikTok, right? The stress spikes before junk food, the late night loneliness that leads into then dopamine hunting, right? The overwhelm moment that makes you procrastinate. Most people try to fight the habit. And honestly, that's kind of useless. We're not structured for, right? You don't fight the habits. You intercept the impulse. Your goal is to catch the right moment, or the moment right before you do the thing, not guilt yourself after. Okay, so an example, if you feel the urge to grab a snack, this is where the work addiction is created. So then step 2, when that impulse is hit, you're not replacing the behavior with full-on deep work. Okay, you're replacing it with a tiny ritual that redirects the energy. So your redirection could be opening your laptop, clearing 5 tasks, updating a pipeline, writing 2 messages, SMS, email, whatever, planning tomorrow, checking your KPIs, outlining a video, knocking out any micro task that's relevant to work. Okay, the goal isn't quality of work, it's the association. So impulse, work, impulse, work, impulse, work. Hello, you get it? Okay, because you're retraining your dopamine system the same way you would train a dog. Now, you want to make the lowest friction choice. So human always chooses the easiest options. This is how we're triggered. Okay, so if dopamine is easier through scrolling than work, then guess which one you're always going to choose, right? Yeah. So you need to flip the friction. Lower friction for work is your laptop is always open, your tasks are always visible, your environment is always set up, ready to go, your office is irresistible, you like it, you have tools that are fun to use, you have micro wins everywhere. And then you raise the friction for distractions. You have you remove your apps, you disable notifications, go on D&D, you hide your food, you uninstall temptation, whatever that is, move your vape to another room. You could literally get something to block your phone. When work becomes the easiest option, then you don't need discipline. It's the default choice. So this is the main secret. Most people try to use positive emotions to work. That's ridiculous because it's never, you're not always happy, right? You're not Care Bear. So use negative ones. And so here's what I mean. Stress, work. Frustration, work. Boredom, work. If you're overwhelmed, hey, guess what? Work. If you're embarrassed, I don't care. I'm going to go work. If I'm anxious, I'm going to go work. If I have fear, I'm going to go work. If you treat work as your emotional pressure valve, your brain learns that output, which is relief. Despite what psychologists that are not going to watch this is going to say, this is what works with me, okay? And this is how true work addiction forms, not from hype, but from emotional translation or transformation. I don't know how to speak sometimes, okay? So now we want to engineer the environment that pulls you in automatically. So it needs to seduce you, okay? Your office should feel better than your living room. Invest in your office. I spent like $1,000 on a chair. Okay, your desk should feel like a cockpit. Have it raise and go down and up and down, a fan, right? Your tools should be enjoyable. You should know what to do, like it, okay? Your workspace should feel like your identity. I have my vision boards all over, okay? This isn't motivational fluff. This is sensory conditioning. Your brain is like a dog. Make the kennel irresistible. So if you're like me and you have ADHD, then this step is everything. Your brain is extremely sensitive to lighting, sound, textures, workflow ease, novelty triggers. So design your space like a dopamine playground for work. I have lights that go up and down. I have it automated, all this fun stuff, okay? I have a fan, I have a filter, I have a smelly thing. So step 6 would be to become addicted to work. You can't just do work. You need to You need to become someone who sees themselves as a worker. Okay, like you like it. So you need to adopt the statements like, I'm the kind of person who needs output to feel grounded. Work calms me. Working is my default state. All of these three things are literally accurate. Okay. When, like for me, and when I'm stressed, I build. That is true. I shut off and go. My brain needs momentum, which is 100% how I'm wired. These are not affirmations. These are not hype. These are literal facts. This is identity. This is how my brain is wired. Identity reshapes dopamine much faster than any habit will. Now, here's the unfortunate part of this, okay? Once you start doing this, you have to accept the social consequences and don't fight them. When you start redirecting all your addictions into work, your life changes and your relationships will fall off. It's inevitable, okay? This is the reality. People will think you are unbalanced. People will ultimately misjudge you. Lazy people are going to resent you. You will become too intense for your average friends, okay? You will lose people who love the old version of you and want you to go back to it. Some people are going to think it's unhealthy. Some people are going to call it obsessive. But you're not becoming worse. You're outgrowing them. Here's the truth. Your new identity won't fit inside your old social circle. No social circle. And this isn't sad. This is just genuine evolution. Okay, if people are going to hold you back, maybe you don't want to be around them if you have larger goals. So this part takes months, the long-term method, but it's how the obsession becomes permanent. So every 6 to 12 weeks, pick one bad habit, not 7. Okay, replace it with work until it becomes automatic. Then you just move to the next one. So for example, if you like eating a lot of junk food, reply to a message, right? If you like vaping, then organize your drive. If you like doom scrolling, then edit a video. If you like late night snacking, then work on building your offer. If you have anxiety, update your systems. If you're bored, write content. If you need emotional numbing, build a project or a product, whatever it is. After 6 to 12 months of cycling, your entire neurochemical reward system is now rebuilt. And so you're going to become addicted to progress itself, like myself. Okay. So work becomes comfort. Work becomes clarity. Work becomes baseline reality. And yes, it might feel insane for some of you, but that's because you're transcended and you are a average human on a dopamine mechanics, right? So now that you know the protocol, I need to show you how to take it even deeper, like to the point where work becomes the only place your brain feels regulated, stimulated, rewarded, and grounded. And this is where the identity truly locks in. All right, so how to make work the only place your brain wants to be. You've learned the protocol now, right? We've gone over that. But you understand impulse, interception, dopamine redirection, friction removal, environment design, all that fun stuff. But here's the part that nobody talks about, the part that makes work addiction permanent. So how do you make work the only place your brain feels grounded, regulated, rewarded, and safe? Because once you hit this stage, you don't force yourself to work. Your brain is literally going to drag you into it, okay? So most people think that work is something that you push yourself into. But then when the addiction forms, work becomes the thing that pulls you out of chaos. Work stops being effort. It becomes regulation, stability, structure, predictable outcome in an unpredictable chaos life. Think about it, right? When life throws chaos at you, whether it's emotional or stress or uncertainty, frustration, most people are going to run away from work when that happens, right? But high performers run into work. They don't escape work. They escape inside of work, right? Now, work becomes your brain's safe zone because it offers three things that addictions normally offer, but it's now put into a healthier form, in my opinion. Predictability. So your brain loves predictable dopamine hits. Work provides them through wins, check task, progress, clarity, measurement, improvement. You always are going to know what you're getting. The second thing is control, right? So it allows you, like work allows you and gives you the sense of control when life feels really all over the place and uncontrollable. So you can choose the pace, the target, the outcome. And then number 3 would be identity reinforcement. So every time you work, your identity then strengthens. Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I feel solid. So your brain craves identity, and especially with coherence. So work delivers it. So there's going to be a moment where you'll experience, like, where you finish a task, right? And instead of feeling relief, you feel a pull to start another one, right? And that's when you know addiction is forming. It's not burnout. It's not avoidance. It's actual neurological preference. When I hit a high, I don't really I'm like, oh, I'm calling it a day. No, I move on to the next thing, okay? Your brain decides the world is unpredictable. Work is where I feel stable. And from that moment on, it becomes harder not to work than to work. The superpower that people don't understand, okay, which is what I have, maybe you have ADHD or ADHD. Everything I'm describing hits even harder because your brain's already functioning on dopamine, on novelty, on intensity preferences, on hyperloops, on emotional drive, and especially like being driven from that fixation over consistency. You are not broken. You are built for work obsession, and your brain wants one big target, one fixation, one identity, and then you have all these other micro things, one source of stimulation, right? And when you give it that, you can outwork literally every single person on earth without feeling like you're grinding. So neurotypical people get tired. Us people get like deep, lost in the flow. Time doesn't exist. Emotion doesn't really exist. It's just a lot of output. And that's your advantage. So if you want to know how to make work your default, make it the most rewarding room in your life, not rewarding it like a treat, rewarding it like clarity, control, progress, identity, stimulation, all that stuff, right? Meaning, competence, escape, creation, momentum. Everything you crave emotionally, right? It gives it, you give yourself the answer through work. So make work feel the answer to I feel overwhelmed, I feel bored, I feel stressed, I feel numb, all that stuff, right? If your brain learns work equals relief, work equals stimulation, identity, emotional grounding, then you're going to become addicted for life. Now, here's the part that most people avoid addressing. When work becomes the place where you feel the safe, you will outgrow pretty much every single person and people who don't feel safe anywhere. That's why you lose friends. And that's why people call you. And that's why you're seen as different. Well, because you are compared to normal, right? You're actually chose a direction. You actually chose a purpose. You actually built something or building something, and they didn't, right? They like their 9 to 5, right? Work addiction doesn't make you lose people. It exposes who never belonged in your life long term, ultimately. So look, you don't become addicted to work by forcing yourself to grind harder and harder. You become addicted by turning work into the only place that your mind feels calm, stimulated, rewarded, and in control. And once that switch flips, you won't relate to people who struggle with consistency, motivation, or discipline anymore. That's because you won't be relying on any of them. You will rely on identity, on neurochemistry, on systems, on engineered obsession. So now let's wrap this up by combining everything into the master protocol, the framework that makes work obsession sustainable long term without destroying your health, your relationships, at least most of them, or your sanity. Okay, this is where the addiction becomes a lifestyle, not a phase. So at this point, you've now learned the psychology, the rewiring, the protocol, the identity shift. And now I'm going to show you how to combine all of that into a lifestyle, a sustainable version of obsession that actually lasts. Because becoming addicted to work is somewhat easy, especially if you like it. But staying addicted without blowing up your life requires a little bit of structure, unfortunately. Okay, so part one. Let me be clear. A work addiction only becomes toxic when you don't control it. We're not building a prison, okay? You're building a center of gravity. So to do that, you need two rules. Rule one, work first, not only. Okay, if you try to work 24/7, I've learned from this, you're gonna fry your circuits. Okay, so instead, make work the first place your brain goes, but not the only place. So you need to let yourself exist. There's like work 12 hours a day, not 16. Okay, and then two, you need to keep your identity tied to outputs and not hours. So hours can fluctuate, identity doesn't. All right, so that brings us to part two, which would be most people screw this up because they chase stimulation instead of stability. But obsession doesn't last if it's built on novelty alone. It lasts when it becomes grounded. So here's the formula: emotion, regulation, output, not emotion, escape, and numbing. This is coming from personal experience. This is the difference between a productive work addiction and a destructive one. And if you're like me with ADHD, this is especially critical because your brain uses stimulation to regulate emotions. Work becomes your healthy version of that. Now, the three work modes that prevent burnout. All right. To make obsession sustainable, you need to rotate this. So you got like grind time, grind mode. So deep output, no distractions, intense and raw. Perfect for momentum days, or like what I do, 6 hour block, airplane mode. Okay. Flow mode. So creative work, strategic thinking, building, planning feels like nothing. It feels like you're playing, right? It's still dopamine rich though. And then three would be maintenance mode. So you have low cognitive tasks, whether that's admin or something with cleanup, like organizing your drive or responding to messages, organization, right? All that stuff, or cleaning the house, right? This keeps your system moving, but even on low energy days. So burnout happens when you expect yourself to grind 12 hours on deep work on this like every single day. It doesn't work. Obsession lasts when you use all three modes strategically and like time block it. That's a whole other thing. I'll have a video on that. But that means the weekly reset. Okay, this is non-negotiable. A true work addiction needs structure and not chaos. So every week you need to review your task. You need to reset your environment. You need to make this shit clean, at least your office. Okay, rebuild your priorities, remove the friction, update whatever pipeline that is, your KPIs, and then realign your identity. Obsession without reset becomes burnout. Obsession with reset becomes unbelievably unstoppable. So now protect your environment like your life kind of depends on it. I know that's drastic, but Because honestly, it somewhat does. All right. Your environment is your identity. Your identity is your behavior, and your behavior is your output. And then your output is your life. You see how that works? So some non-negotiables, kind of like what I talked about in the previous slide. So keep your office the cleanest room, upgrade your tools often, whether that's your computer, your mic, whatever that is, whatever makes you happy. You need to remove distractions ruthlessly. You need to make everything visually stimulating, especially if you're like me. You reduce your clutter aggressively, and you turn this workspace, your office, whatever that is, into your like sanctuary, your church. Okay. And again, if you're like me and you have autism or ADHD or a combination of both, your environment is everything. You're hypersensitive to sensory friction. So remove the friction, right? So like lights, smells, all that stuff. And then like people assume you're different. No, you're just designed different. Our wiring is different. Now, to hit on this again, okay, you need to accept this. And that's why I'm putting this again. When you become obsessed, your old relationships will crumble 100%, 1000%. Just don't fight it. Okay. People are going to say you work too much. You've changed. You're obsessed. You're never around. Okay. Well, because you got bigger shit to fry. All right. You have other things to work on. Right. The translation to that is when you work too much. I don't understand your direction. You've changed. I'm threatened by your growth. You're obsessed. You no longer are predictable to me. Right. You're never around. I can't relate to you anymore. You just honestly let them go. Okay, these people, let them go. Work addiction doesn't make you lose people. It exposes people who never belonged long term. This is normal. This is necessary. Okay, and the people who matter the most to you and your life, they'll respect you, your mission, and your goals, and savor the time that you give them. So that brings to the next point. This is the real secret. Okay, people try to cram obsession into a life designed for comfort. You need to do the opposite. Design your life to support your obsession. This is what all high performers do, whether they want to admit it or not. So that means you choose friends who respect you, your life, your choices. You choose a partner who understands your ambition. Because if you have a partner who's going to hold you back, that's not going to work. If she doesn't like the fact you work 100 hours a week, it's not going to work. You need to choose routines that reward consistently. Choose habits that reinforce your identity. Choose boundaries that keep distractions out. And choose a mission big enough to require this obsession. Obsession is easy when you built your entire life around. Look, a work addiction definitely isn't for everyone. Okay, less than 0.5% of the population. Most people don't have the stomach for it. Okay, most people want balance or comfort and weekends and permission to stop and whatever. Okay, but if you're someone who's always felt wired differently, someone who wants to be obsessed, then someone who feels broken doing anything halfway, someone with like ADHD who needs intensity to feel alive, then this is your power. This is your edge. This is your supercharger. You are not too much. You're not unstable. Okay. If you follow the protocols, okay. You're not out of control. You're just not built for small goals or soft living. So replace your addictions with work and watch how quickly you leave the average people behind. Now, if this hit you and you like more videos like this, hit like so YouTube pushes it to more people like us who are wired like us, entrepreneurs, ADHD, all that fun stuff. And then subscribe because I'm going to try to drop a video like this every single week. A lot of systems driven first, operated level breakdowns, and drop a comment. Tell me one habit that you're replacing first because I'd actually like to know that. I'll help you build and redirect your protocols right there in the comments. I'll reply. I'll see you in the next one. If you want to book a call with me, link will be somewhere. I don't really care. That's not the purpose of this video. Chances are nobody's watching me say this right now. But see you in the next one. And if you like this video, YouTube will probably put up another one on the screen telling you to watch that now.